from the land of beauty and bounty, Lanao del Norte. This is the Time Traveler's Breaking News Report. Good day, Philippines! This is your anchor, Honey Gem, breaking you the 5 minutes of romanticism era vibes, an informing news broadcast. Here are today's headlines. Romantic period started around 1830s and ended around 1900s. In performing music of the romantic period, tempo should be elastic. Another headlines for the report. Romantic composers prioritize the emotional or narrative content of the music above its form. Composers of the Romantic era saw music as a means of individual and emotional expression. We will have this news after a very short while. Time News Traveler, stand by.
Now let's have Miss Manto to report about romantic period started around 1830s and ended around 1900s as compositions became increasingly expressive and inventive. Pasok, Miss Manto.
So yes, honey, so when we talk about romantic period setting, so romantic period setting started around 1830s and ended around 90s as compositions became increasingly expressive and inventive. So expressive symphonies, virtuous piano music, dramatic operas, and passionate song took place as inspiration for arts and literature. So it is said that romantic era is known for its intense energy and passion. The rigid forms of classical music gave way to greater expression, and music grew closer to art, literature, and theater. That's all, honey. Back to you.
For the report of informing music of the romantic period, tempo should be elastic, reflecting the expressive nonsense of text. We will be having again Miss Manto in this report.
So yes, honey, come back again. When we talk about the romantic period of performance practice, in performing music of the romantic period, the tempo should be elastic, reflecting the expressive nuances of text. So the idea of rubato, as mentioned earlier, wherein the tempo varies in an important aspect of romantic style. So the tone to be used for romantic music should be full and rich. So a problem in performing a practice related to romantic period is found in romantic editions of earlier music. Such editions tend to include the many expressive markings that were never intended by the composers. So this any edition of music written before 1970s that contains dynamic tempo and expressive markings and clearly identified as it is editorial is suspect. So romantic composers used standard notation and indicated in relatively specific terms the way they wished for their music to be performed. Back to you, honey.
Thank you very much, Miss Manto.
Catch more new news knowledge when your new travelers return. Stay tuned. For the report of romantic composers prioritize the emotional and narrative content of the music above its form, we will have the reporter Miss Waskin to deliver this report.
According to Kinoli.com, romantic composers prioritize the emotional or narrative content of the music above its form, which is why they broke so many of the classical composers' roles. But they did not reject or break with what the musical language developed during classical period, but used its form as foundation of their works. Romantic composers would evolve and expand the formalist classical structure into a more complex, rich musical language. Romantic composers also developed new techniques or reinvigorated lesser used ones to express a more extensive array of emotional and narrative states. One of the greatest composer, Ludwig van Beethoven, a transitional composer from the classical period to the romantic period. Let us take a look in his famous and influential piece, Symphony No. 9. Although many works from Beethoven's early period were done in classical forms, he was an originator of the romantic musical language that sought to use music as a more personal emotional expression. Other famous composers are Brahms, Tchaikovsky, Schumann, Schubert, Chopin, Wagner, and many other composers. Sherlinda Biwaskin, your time news traveler, always on the go for you to know.
We will have now the role of composers. It will be reported by Miss Waskin. So Romantic era saw music as a means of individual and emotional expression. Miss Waskin, pasok!
Yes, Honey Jim. Composers of the Romantic era saw music as a means of individual and emotional expression. During the Romantic period, according to LiveAbout.com, composers used music to express themselves. Orchestral music became more emotional and subjective than in previous eras. Composers were inspired by romantic love, the supernatural, and even dark themes such as death. Some composers drew inspiration from the history and folk songs of their native country. Others drew influences from foreign lands. They considered music the art form most capable of expressing the full range of human emotions. As a result, romantic composers broadened the scope of emotional content. Composers of the time had more personal, creative freedom because they no longer work under the noble patronage system that defined the Baroque and Classical eras. Sherlinda Biwaskin, your time news traveler, always on the go for you to know.
This is Honey Gem. That's all the news we collected just for you. Thank you for always listening and be safe always.